She sat there in the crowded restaurant, her hands trembling around the wineglass, eyes fixed on the man across the room. The man she once called her fiancé. The man she had left waiting at the altar. Her breath caught, and for a moment, the noise around her faded away. She was frozen, heart pounding, tears threatening to spill down her cheeks. Years had passed since that day. She told herself she had moved on. She told herself she made the right choice. After all, he was broke, struggling, and she deserved better. But nothing could prepare her for seeing him again like this. Confident, successful, and yet somehow still the same man she had loved so deeply. Her mind raced, memories crashing like waves. The laughter, the fights, the promises they made, the pain of walking away. And now, here he was, sitting just a few feet away, unaware that she was watching, overwhelmed by regret. This was a moment she never imagined facing, the moment when a broken past comes back to demand answers. Looking back, it all started so beautifully. Daniel and I met in college, two young souls full of dreams and hope. He wasn't just my boyfriend, he was my best friend, my partner in every crazy adventure. We laughed at stupid jokes, shared late-night talks about the future, and promised we'd build a life together no matter what. Daniel was kind in a way that made you feel safe. He wasn't flashy or loud, he was steady and honest. He worked hard, juggling odd jobs while studying business, determined to start something of his own one day. I believed in him with all my heart, but life wasn't easy. Money was always tight. We lived in a tiny apartment, cooked cheap meals, and sometimes had to skip things just to pay the bills. Still, we were happy. Our love made the struggles feel smaller, and we dreamed of better days ahead. But outside that little bubble, things were different. My parents, wealthy and proud, never quite approved of Daniel. They wanted me to be with someone stable, someone who could give me the life they imagined. My friends whispered behind my back, judging his old car, his worn-out clothes. I could see it in their eyes, the doubt, the pity. At first, I ignored it. I told myself love was enough, but slowly the pressure crept in. I felt torn between loyalty to Daniel and the expectations of a life I was supposed to have. I started questioning if my dreams were enough, or if I was just holding on to something that couldn't give me what I wanted. Still, every time I looked at him, I saw the man I loved, the man who believed in us even when the world didn't. And that gave me hope, even if I wasn't sure for how much longer. The first cracks didn't show up all at once. They came slowly, like tiny fractures running through something that once seemed unbreakable. It started with little things I tried to ignore at first but couldn't anymore. My friends would tease me, sometimes in a joking way, sometimes not. "How's Daniel's car these days? Still that old rust bucket?" they'd ask with a smirk. Or, "Are you sure you want to be seen with him? He looks like he's still stuck in college." At parties, they'd glance at his worn-out clothes, whisper behind their hands, and I could feel their judgment like a cold shadow. At first, I laughed it off, defending Daniel quietly in my head, but the words stung. They planted seeds of doubt I didn't want to admit were growing inside me. Then there was my mom. She didn't hide her disappointment. One afternoon, when she thought I was ready to listen, she said, "Sweetheart, you deserve better. You don't have to settle for someone who can't give you the life you want. I'm even willing to help you if you choose to leave Daniel and marry someone successful." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I loved my mom, but hearing her say that made my heart ache. It felt like she was telling me Daniel wasn't enough, like I wasn't enough. I found myself comparing Daniel to my friends' boyfriends, men with fancy jobs, big houses, and expensive suits. It wasn't just jealousy, it was pressure. The pressure to have what everyone else had, to not just survive, but thrive, to have a future that looked perfect on the outside. Arguments with Daniel started to happen, though rarely about love. They were about money, how we spent it, how little we had, and what our future might look like. He wanted to build his business slowly, carefully. I wanted us to have stability now, or at least the promise of it soon. One night, after a fight about his refusal to take a better-paying job, I found myself crying alone. I loved him, But I also wanted a life free from constant worry. I didn't want to be embarrassed anymore, not in front of my friends, not in front of my family. I felt torn between two worlds, between love and what everyone said love should look like. I didn't want to lose him, but I also didn't want to lose myself trying to hold on to something that seemed to be slipping away. And as much as I tried to push those doubts away, they were growing louder. The pressure was becoming impossible to ignore. Despite all the doubts swirling inside me, the wedding plans kept moving forward. Invitations were sent, dresses were chosen, and the dates were set. Everyone was excited, except me. Somewhere deep down, I felt the weight of every decision like a stone crushing my chest. Daniel stayed calm through it all, even when I could barely look at him without feeling torn. He believed in us, believed that we could face anything together. But I was scared. Scared that love wasn't enough. Scared that the life we dreamed of wasn't meant for me. 1 week before the wedding, I decided to visit Daniel's small apartment. I told myself I wanted to help with the final preparations, but the truth was, I just needed to see where he really lived, to remind myself what we were building. When I stepped inside, the cramped space hit me harder than I expected. It smelled of old books and hope, but what caught my eye were the empty shelves. The small collection of his belongings was missing some of the things I remembered. A few well-worn books were gone. The old guitar he loved to play wasn't there either. Daniel caught me staring and quietly explained. He had sold those things to help pay for the honeymoon, the only way he could afford it. I should have felt touched, grateful even, but instead I felt something else. Embarrassment. Shame. Like all his sacrifices, reminded me of how far we still were from the life I thought I deserved. I looked at the floor, suddenly overwhelmed by the thought of the future. Years of struggle, sacrifice, and endless waiting. I wondered if I could do it. If I wanted to. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the sound of my own heartbeat louder than anything else. I wanted to believe in us, but I couldn't stop thinking about what I wanted for myself. The life my parents wanted for me. The life my friends were already living. The next morning, everything changed. The sun was shining, and the house was filled with flowers and laughter. Guests arrived in their best dresses and suits, expecting a celebration, but I wasn't ready. I wasn't sure I ever would be. Before anyone else woke up, I left a letter on Daniel's pillow. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, putting my feelings into words that would break his heart but save mine. In that letter, I told him I couldn't live a life of struggle anymore, that I was scared of the future we dreamed of, and I wasn't strong enough to face it. I said I hoped he would understand, even if it hurt. Then I left. I didn't wait for his calls, his questions, or his tears. I walked away from the man who loved me more than anyone else ever had. I don't think I fully realized what I had done until the ceremony began, and Daniel was standing at the altar alone, waiting for a bride who would never come. I don't know if the guests noticed the silence that fell when they realized I wasn't there, but I felt it. The emptiness in my chest, the weight of 1,000 regrets pressing down. That day, I lost the man I loved, and I lost a part of myself that I didn't even know was still there. After leaving Daniel at the altar, I tried to convince myself that life would get better, that I had made the right choice. And for a while it seemed like it might. I married someone else, a man who checked all the boxes my parents and friends wanted. Wealthy, successful, charming. He had the perfect job, the fancy car, and a smile that lit up every room. On the outside, everything looked like a dream come true, but inside, it was something else entirely. Our home was quiet, not in a peaceful way, but in a way that felt empty. There was no laughter, no warmth. Our conversations were polite, careful, and mostly about practical things. I missed the late-night talks, the silly jokes, and the way Daniel could make me feel safe without even trying. Sometimes, when I was alone, my mind drifted back to Daniel, to the way he looked at me with so much love, even when life was hard. But every time I thought about him, I pushed the memories away. I told myself it was for the best, that I didn't need someone who struggled, that I deserved more. Years passed like this, a series of quiet days and lonely nights. the marriage didn't last. The cracks that were hidden beneath the surface grew too big to ignore. We divorced quietly, without drama, but the end felt like the closing of a door on something I wasn't sure I ever really had. Now, I live alone. I'm still part of the same social circle, still attending dinners and parties, smiling for photos, and sharing stories that sound perfect on the outside. But inside, there's a hollow feeling I can't shake. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I wonder what might have been if I had stayed with Daniel, if I had been brave enough to face the struggle with him instead of running away. But the truth is, I don't know. And that thought is both painful and strangely comforting. Life moves on, or at least, that's what I told myself, but some things don't move as easily as time. One evening, I found myself at a luxury event with my girlfriends. It was one of those nights where I smiled, dressed in my best clothes, surrounded by laughter and chatter, but inside, I felt more lonely than proud. The crowd was full of success stories, impressive faces, and sparkling achievements, but for me, it all felt hollow. As I sipped my drink, waiting for the main speaker, my mind drifted to memories I'd long tried to bury. Then, the room fell quiet, and the spotlight shone on the stage. A man stepped up to the microphone, tall, confident, and graceful. My breath caught in my throat. It was Daniel. I hadn't seen him in years, not like this. He was different, more polished, sure, but there was something familiar in his eyes, something that made my heart ache. He began to speak, his voice steady but full of emotion. He told a story, one of betrayal and heartbreak, of losing someone he loved but still rising again stronger than before. He spoke about struggle, sacrifice, and the pain of watching a dream slip away. He never mentioned names, but every word felt like it was meant for me. As I listened, the room seemed to disappear. His words cut through the noise, echoing the silent regrets I carried deep inside. He spoke about choosing himself, finding strength in failure, and building a new life from the ashes. I felt my chest tighten, my eyes sting. How could I have been so blind? How could I have left the one person who truly loved me, who believed in us even when everything was against us? Seeing him now, so successful and composed, I realized I had lost more than just a fiancé. I had lost my chance at a real love, the kind that stands firm through the hardest storms. The applause filled the room, but I barely noticed. My mind was racing, filled with the echoes of what could have been. That night, I left the event with a heavy heart, carrying the weight of a truth I could no longer ignore. Sometimes, the greatest loss isn't money or status, it's the person who loved you when you had nothing. After the event ended, I felt a mix of emotions swirling inside me, regret, shame, and a desperate need for closure. For the first time in years, I knew I had to face Daniel. I gathered every bit of courage I had, and approached him backstage. He looked up, and met my eyes. There was kindness there, but also a hint of caution. He smiled softly, like someone who had learned to protect his heart. I'm sorry, I stammered, my voice barely steady. Tears welled up, and I blinked them back, afraid to break down completely in front of him. I'm sorry for leaving you, for everything. I was scared, and I thought I was doing what was best. Daniel listened quietly. He didn't interrupt or say anything right away. His calm silence made the weight of my words feel even heavier. Finally, he spoke. "Thank you," he said gently. "You taught me the biggest lesson of my life. Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who show us who we really are, whether we want to see it or not." His words surprised me. I had expected anger or bitterness, but instead, there was peace. "I don't hold any hard feelings," he continued. "I've moved on. I'm engaged now. My fiancé was there for me when I had nothing, when I was just starting over. When he told me he was engaged to someone who stood by him when he had nothing, my heart twisted in a way I didn't expect. It wasn't jealousy. No, it was something softer, more complicated. It was relief. Relief that Daniel had found someone who loved him for who he truly was, someone who saw his worth even in the hardest moments. Someone who gave him the kind of love he always deserved but never got from me. We stood there quietly, two people who once dreamed the same dream together, but ended up walking very different paths. It felt like the space between us was filled with all the years we lost, all the moments we'll never get back. "I'm truly happy for you," I whispered, my voice barely louder than a breath. Saying it out loud made it feel real, like finally accepting the truth I had been avoiding for so long. He nodded slowly, and then, for the very first time since we met again, a genuine smile, warm and real, spread across his face. It wasn't one of those polite, awkward smiles people give when they're trying to be nice. No, this smile carried something deeper. It held peace, acceptance, and maybe even a touch of gratitude. It was honest, and it reached all the way to his eyes. "Me too," he said softly, with a calm that surprised me. There was no bitterness or anger in his voice, only a quiet strength. In that moment, all the years we had spent apart, the pain, the heartbreak, the mistakes we both made, seemed to settle. They no longer weighed heavily on us like a storm raging inside. Instead, everything felt still, like the calm after a long difficult rain. There was no blame, no anger left between us. Just two people, who had once loved each other deeply, who had lost their way, but who had also learned something precious. We had learned that love isn't always about holding on, it's sometimes about knowing when to let go. And in that letting go, we both found a kind of peace neither of us expected. And with that moment, the way he smiled, the peace in his eyes, I finally understood something I hadn't been able to see before. Not all love stories end the way we imagine in our dreams. Sometimes, they don't have the happy ending we hoped for. But that doesn't mean they're meaningless. Every love story, even the ones that break us, teaches us something important. It teaches us how to grow, how to heal, and maybe most importantly, how to find our way back to ourselves when we've lost our way. That night, sitting alone in my quiet apartment, I let myself feel everything I had pushed away for years, the sadness, the regret, the loneliness. It wasn't the money I had lost, not really. It wasn't the fancy dresses, the big parties, or the sparkling rings. What I truly lost was something much deeper and more painful. I lost love, the kind of love that holds strong when everything else feels like it's falling apart. The kind of love that doesn't disappear just because life gets difficult. I lost loyalty, that quiet promise someone makes to stand by your side, no matter what storms come. I lost a true partnership, someone who believed in us, in our dreams, even when nobody else did. I was blinded by shallow dreams back then, the glitter and glow of wealth, the approval and whispers of others, the idea that success was measured by comfort and ease. But now, after all this time, I see the truth clearly. Real success isn't about fancy things or status symbols. It's about the people who stay with you when everything else fades away, the ones who hold your hand through the darkest nights and still believe in you in the morning. Daniel is living the life we once dreamed about together, the life I thought we would build side by side. He started from nothing, no fancy help, no easy way out, and somehow he made it work. His business is thriving now, and he's surrounded by people who truly care about him, who respect him for who he is. But he's doing all of that without me. Saying that out loud hurts more than I ever thought it would. It's like a slow ache deep inside, a quiet pain that doesn't go away. The reality is hard to swallow, that the future I imagined with him is now someone else's reality. And as I sit here alone in the quiet, the only words I can find to say come out as a soft, almost broken whisper. I hope she never breaks his heart, because Daniel deserves a love that's real. A love that stands strong when the world turns cold, when life gets tough, when nothing else makes sense. A love that doesn't disappear at the first sign of struggle. That's the kind of love I wish I could have given him, but I couldn't. And for that, I will always carry this weight in my heart. Sometimes, we only realize the true value of someone after they're gone. It's easy to judge people by their bank account, or the life they have, but the real measure of a person is their heart, the love, loyalty, and kindness they show when nothing else is certain. Take a moment to reflect on the people in your life who truly matter. If this story touched you, please like, comment, and share it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join us for more powerful stories every week.